Welcome back to another episode of A Gift from Adversity. My name is Juri Love. I'm your host. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to introduce my book, which is A Gift from Adversity. Same title as this podcast. The subtitle is Overcoming Sexual Abuse, Domestic Violence, Bullying, and Homelessness. After I experienced all of these adversities in Japan and then came to America, this is my bio book, and a lot happened in my life and how I overcame with my adversities after coming to America, etc. So check it out. It's available on Amazon. A Gift from Adversity by Juri Love. After I published my book in 2020, I felt very compelled to create a platform where we can share difficult conversation about adversities and how we overcome all the challenges. And it's been really wonderful to have so many guests on my podcast talking about the tools that they use to overcome adversities and a gift that came from it, not only just adversity and challenges. And today we have an exciting guest. Her name is Angela Wilson, and she is from Australia. Let's introduce her. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming to A Gift from University today. Can you please tell our audience who you are and then what you do?
Sure, no problem. Thank you for having me here, Juri. And I come from Melbourne, Australia. It's winter over here, so we're just sort of getting through that last part of the cold snap. And my name is Angela Wilson. I'm a career coach who works with women who really want to transform and uncover the next chapter of their life. Maybe they've gone through something quite unexpected or a big change and are looking to really uncover and discover that meaning and purpose in their life since they've been through what they've been through.
And do you have any website or social media that people can follow you?
Yes, so my website is www.careerdesignstudio.com.au, and I'm also on LinkedIn under Angela Wilson. If you type in Angela Wilson Careers, I'm also on Instagram under Career Design Studio and Facebook as well. So you can usually find me somewhere within those kind of platforms.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for tuning in all the way from Australia. I am in America, Massachusetts. So we are at nighttime, and this is summertime for us. So New England has very short summer because it's really cold, but we are enjoying the bit of summer that we have here in New England.
I've never been over there, but I'd love to travel and get an experience of what it's like in different countries. And I know that you've been in a couple of different countries. I've read nearly all of your book. I found it quite interesting that you've traveled to different places, and now you're in America.
Yes, but not in Australia or New Zealand.
Okay.
You know, I have very close friends in New Zealand. She's my pen pal since 14, 13, or like all our lives, and we've been exchanging letters, and now we are Facebook friends. And I have very close friends, Dr. Geraldine Bluestein from South Australian University. She's an anthropologist, and then we worked together in the past. So, anyways, let's jump into our first question, which is the adversity. So, would you share what happened and what was your adversity?
Sure, no problem. And I just find that a lot of people have been through adversity, and that it's so great that you've got this platform where people can share their stories so that other people can connect with what they're going through at the moment and to find a way through it. Because I know that when you're in the midst of pain and what you're going through, it can be really hard to see anything else outside of that. So my adversity that I'd like to share with you today is a moment in my life that in an instant, everything changed. And when I think about natural disasters, this is something that where I live in the Dandenongs in my particular area, which is a really nice area for lots of greenery, lots of trees. And where we live, we always know about the threat of bushfires. So in summer, you've always got that particular threat. Yet what I faced was not within summer. It was October 2016. It was a beautiful spring morning, and it instantly turned into a fierce windstorm. So we're really prepared where we live for bushfires, yet a windstorm, you're actually not sure what to do within that moment. That I remember stepping outside, and it went from a beautiful spring morning to intense wind that was really loud. It was howling. It came from a different direction, which sort of gave you those prickles, those tingles going, something's a little bit different today, and I have to take this seriously. And I remember looking up at the trees, and they were thrashing backwards and forwards, and I instantly went into instinct mode. Where are my children? Let's think about, do we leave or do we stay? And as my husband and I were inside and thinking about what to do, a black shadow caught our eye, and we grabbed the children, ran outside. In a split second, there was a tree, a big tall gum tree. They're 20 meters high in my area, and it landed and crushed our home. Thankfully, we did make it outside, yet as we turned around and looked at the devastation, so this tree had crushed the home. It had burst through the wall that we were just standing in when we were thinking about leaving in that particular spot. And our hearts were racing, children were crying. And I knew in that moment my life had changed forever, that I was staring at my crushed home. The cars were trapped on that particular day. We couldn't get out. So we really felt trapped in every sense. That what do we do now? How do we protect our family? And I can remember just that intensity of that moment. And that's going to live with me for I guess, for the rest of my life. That it's been really windy in the last couple of days at my area, and you automatically go, are we safe? We know now what we can do. We can leave as soon as we feel safe. But in that moment, I couldn't do anything apart from focus on my family. And for the next 3 years, that's what I did. I focused on my family. We focused on the rebuild of our home. And I was very consumed with all of that, because my world had narrowed to those particular values that was important to me: the survival of my family, the rebuild of ourselves, and what we were surrounded in our home. And it wasn't until I felt like I was out of that survival mode. So when we step out of, I guess, the pain, and you've processed the trauma, and you feel like your life has moved on, I thought, great, we got to rebuild our home. It took 3 years, but we did it. And I felt like that was a really great fresh start for me. And as soon as I went to step out into normal life and connect with people on a very different level, and step back into a job that I'd had to help rebuild the home, I almost had, I guess, I had a career crisis. I wrote a book about this particular moment, that I stepped back into my life and I went, hold on a second, this doesn't feel right. That I can't go back to the person that I was before, because I'm not that person anymore. I can't just keep doing what I was doing, because something has really changed within me. And the 3 years that I spent focusing on the house and the family, I hadn't really thought about, well, what job suits me now? And I had to go through that feeling of, well, who am I now? What job do I want to do? Where is my meaning and purpose now that I've been through what I've been through? And how do I want to show that through the work that I do? So I went through this crisis of feeling lost and stuck with what I was doing, and who am I now? And I went in search of that, which is the chapters of my book about how I went through that transformation and uncovered that next chapter and the meaning and purpose that I want to live by today, seeing as though I went through that change and knowing how precious life is, I wanted to really show myself that when I felt, I guess, that crisis point, that I could do something about it and I didn't have to just live with what I was going through. So there is a bit of a journey within my adversity, that first of all, the natural disaster, but then there's also that internal journey that I went on as well, about who am I now that I've been through that change, and what is that next chapter?
Well, thank you, Angela, so much for sharing your challenge. And I'm sorry that you lost home, but I'm very happy you made out of it, and that your families, all the family members are safe. And those moments, that life or death situation, that you just have to do something to save yourselves. And then I am sure it was a nightmare and scary, and especially after you got out of the house and then cars were trapped. Like, how did you make it out of it for that night, for that day, since your house was crashed and then the cars were trapped?
Yeah, and it is great to go back over, well, what did we do in that moment? Because in the moment you're in survival mode, so you do what you have to. That the instinct really did kick in to run outside. So yes, thankfully, I just remember that my daughter was playing in her bedroom, and she was playing in there 5 minutes before the tree came down. And if she was still in there, this would be a very different story that I'd be telling, because her bed was the only thing that we couldn't really retrieve out of the rubble. And so when we sort of think about those what ifs, I remember going to sleep that night and the what ifs were playing through my mind. What if she was still playing in her bedroom? What if it was nighttime? The impact was pretty much on all of our bedrooms. And there's a lot of what ifs that you can play over in your mind. And during that particular day, we went through lots of decisions that we had to make in that moment. At that particular time in the morning that it happened, there wasn't any rain. So what can we salvage without putting any more risk to ourselves before the rain comes? That we rang our insurance company. It was a Sunday, no one answered. So we had to actually try and tarp up our roof ourselves. There was a lot of things that we had to do that was very split decision making in that particular day, that our cars, we couldn't get out. So where was the best place to be? And it didn't seem like anywhere was very safe. It was just a matter of working through each moment, keeping yourself calm, because the children were already upset. And I can just remember thinking, I have to be the adult here, and I have to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. If I'm panicking, my children are going to panic, and we're okay. And it was about what to do in each moment. So staying in the moment. So I remember that day felt very long. It was very dragged out. And as I reached out to family, there was a couple that did live close by that were able to, drive around the trees that were down. There was so many in the area. My children's school had a tree land on it. The kindergarten that another child was at. So really it had impacted the community. And once we popped our heads out for a moment to say we need some help, there was people that were walking down the street, trying to drive, to just be able to help us in that moment. And it's amazing how much the community can get involved, in your family and friends. But at the end of the day, when you're lying down trying to sleep at night, I had to flip the what ifs into, well, what did go well today? That my family's safe, that I'm sleeping in a nice warm bed that my father-in-law was able to put us up in for the night, that I had to remember that, yes, we're going through a lot, but what did work that day? And what am I thankful for in that moment? Because if I got caught up in the what ifs, that's when it would have been really tough. I guess I probably wouldn't have got to sleep, or that I wouldn't have been able to rest easy and keep coming back each moment throughout the next couple of years to really work through each challenge as it came up.
So that natural disaster, the whole city, whole town were affected.
Yeah, it was quite a big one, and that ever since then they've now got even more support in place, because that was a very freak windstorm. It all of a sudden just flipped, and there was 100-kilometer wind. So I know that we use kilometers in Australia. I'm not sure what the conversion is, but it was a very intense wind that was coming from a different direction. So yeah, the community was very affected, and it's a great feeling when everyone does come together and support each other.
Wow. And then you mentioned about after the disaster, natural disaster, surviving through that, you kind of had, like, maybe would you say identity crisis?
I call it a career crisis, which is about that identity and how I want to show up in the work that I do. So I feel that the 3 years that my life went on hold, I found out a lot about who I was. I turned to journaling a lot and writing essays about my life and really reflecting on the person that I had become in that moment. So when I went and tried to step out into life with this new information about who I was and the person that I wanted to be, it didn't match that job that I was in. So when I think about that career crisis, it was almost like that identity of I want to be able to live by my core values and show up in my job in a very different way than what I was doing. And the crisis was about, well, if this is who I am now, how can I do that through the work that I do? I found that I wanted to be able to show up and work in a very different way, rather than, I guess I used to call it a job. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a career. I wanted to have more meaning and purpose. I wanted to feel fulfilled with what I did, that I was using my strengths and that it really did cover my interests. So I wanted it to connect with me on a very deeper level. And the job that I was in, it just was a misalignment. I wasn't able to do that through the job that I was in.
So would you say if this natural disaster didn't happen, the career crisis, how would you say that two are connected?
Yeah. So when I think about the natural disaster and the career crisis, I think it woke me up that I probably would still have been doing what I was doing. And I call it fumbling and stumbling my way through, that I was a very aware person, but this made me go even deeper into self-awareness, even that identity that you were mentioning before, that I knew myself on a very deeper level and knew that life is precious, life is short. I'd experienced that epiphany, those moments where you go, why hold back any longer? Why stop myself from having that fulfilling career and seeing if I can take steps towards what I was always dreaming of? That gave me that push. And some people just need that big push to go, now's the time. Because if it's not now, when are you going to do it? Are you going to wait for another tree to land on your house? Or this has given you that really big emphasis to put on, well, what is it that you want to do? And what does light you up? And what is holding you back? Because at the moment, it's almost like you're given a fresh start. And I really utilized that fresh start that I was given, and went on that journey to go, well, if it's not the job that I was in, then what is it? And that can be quite scary for people to have that uncertainty and to not know what that next chapter might look like. And it's very easy to stay. So I could have stayed in that job, and I'm sure that things would have worked out, yet that part of me deep inside that knew that something wasn't right, how could I sleep at night knowing that that part of me wasn't fulfilled? And that's the one that I think a lot of people sometimes try to avoid listening to. They might not want to dive deep into, well, what is it that I really want to do? Most people haven't thought that hard and long and deep about it, or used a career coach to really uncover that part of them. So yeah, I really see that those moments allowed me to have that fresh start and gave me that push to really step into something that I had already started considering before the tree fell, and it just gave that extra little bit of push to do it.
I just want to share a story with you and with our audience. It's on my book, A Gift from Adversity, but I was homeless when I was 18 in Tokyo. And then after I became homeless, I got this resort hotel job. And then I got this down payment, a little bit of money to get my first apartment. And then I was doing like a sales job, whatever, to, make it by the day. And then I got food poison and I had nobody around me and I was suffering. And then I know it's silly because I was like 19 and after becoming homeless, it was like very dramatic for me. And I know food poison is not gonna kill somebody, but I thought I was gonna die. And I felt like, oh my gosh, if I were to die, like I really regret coming to America and studying music. And that's like a moment I remember that completely changed me. I quit the job and then I got a better job that pays better. It was not commission. And then I got a scholarship to come to Berkeley. So now I'm in America, and that I don't know what I ate, but if that didn't happen to me, maybe my life would be a little bit different. And every time I have surgery or a near death experience, like that kind of puts you in a perspective, kind of go wake up calls and stuff. So let's move on to the second question, which is the tools. And then I really like this question because every guest that I've had so far, I've had really unique tools that they use to overcome these adversities. And a lot of times that when we share our adversity, some people say, oh, go get a therapist or something. But sometimes that's not 100% the answer. So what are the tools that you used to overcome this natural disaster and a career crisis that you can share with our audience?
Sure. And just before I forget, I love what you said and how you shared that story, because it's those pivotal moments. So the ones, and we don't have to have a near-death experience to have this. It can just be a low in our career, in our life, that does make that difference, that we then start going, this is not where I want to be, and I want to, the change has either happened unexpectedly, or you do that within yourself. So you quit your job and you went, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I've experienced a real low, and I'm going to now make my life even better. So those pivotal moments are amazing to look back on. And that's just a great way to, I often work with people and we look back at those moments and go, well, yeah, what did change, and where are you now? Because usually it sets you up for a high, which it sounds like you have when you look back at your career. So back to your question about the tools and the strategies, what I find when people are in a career crisis, they often they forget the things that can help them. It's almost like you have that very narrow focus about trying to survive, and when things aren't working, to know that there's tools and strategies. And the biggest one that I work with people who are transitioning and moving into a new chapter is that sense of self. So you've kind of touched on it before with the identity, and really discovering who you are now, because it's very different to that person that you were before you got the food poisoning, or before a tree landed on your house. And getting really clear on who you are now, who you used to be, and who you want to become. And that can be easily done. You don't have to go to a therapist for that one. I did lots of journaling and writing and pondering on life as well, that to be able to write things down and see your writing come to life, reading what you write can sometimes help unravel those thoughts that are within your mind. I know some people do like to talk to people. That's where a coach is a really great space. You've got therapy, you've got coaches. You can even talk into apps these days where you can get what's going on in your mind out. It's almost like the darkness. When you get your writing out of the dark and into the light, it can free you up. It can make you feel like you're a different person. Having a conversation with someone who does truly listen can be life-changing as well, where you get to see and hear yourself, and you can start connecting dots and making sense of what you're going through. So definitely one of the tools is understand your situation, yourself in this moment. And what comes from that is a new perspective about who you might want to become, who you might want to be, and what you're bringing with you. A lot of people, when they come to me as a career coach, as I mentioned, they forget who they are. Their confidence is feeling a little bit low, and doing a strength analysis. So looking into, well, what are my strengths? What has helped me through my adversity? What is my natural part of me that I can use in a job or in my life to feel successful? So when we do a strength analysis, it is about finding out at the core of who you are, what you do when you're at your best or when you're challenged, and what just naturally comes to the surface. So when we understand and get that perspective of ourselves and what we're bringing forward into this next chapter, that there's some things that you might want to let go as well. So when we think of what you don't want to come with you in this next chapter, what do you have control over of changing? But then flipping it into, well, what do you want? And giving people a chance to dream big and to wish and to put it out there, because this is that transition point of you have a chance to bring with you all the good things that you might want in your life, or you might want to revamp everything. And what is it that you do want? So getting people to actually think about what it is that they do want in their life now. That's another moment of epiphany, awakening, and people haven't spent enough time actually determining what they do want. We can get very stuck in what's not working and holding on to things that might need to be let go as well. I guess another part is really looking at that support system. So a really great tool to help you through is the support around you. So we can't do things alone when we're going through a crisis or we're going through adversity, because when we're alone, we can sometimes overthink things. We can sometimes need a bit of extra help that can make things a bit easier. So reaching out to people, but first of all, taking stock of the people around you. Do you have the right support system to help you through and to transition into this next chapter? When I went through my adversity in my career crisis, I was very picky about who I shared things with and who did help me. That some people just naturally drop off because they're not sure how to approach people that have been through something that they haven't been through, or they're not sure what to say, or there's people that make it all about themselves. That I know that when you start talking about maybe changing a job or moving somewhere different or trying something that's a little out of somebody else's comfort zone, I put their fears onto you. So just understanding a bit more about your support system and what you do need through this time is really important. So just to summarize, the tools will be understanding yourself in your situation, getting a new perspective of what you want, what you might need to let go of, what wasn't working in your previous life, and what you want to bring forward with you, and that support system, and having a really strong support system with you. It might only be a couple of people, yet it can make that transition just a little bit smoother, a little bit easier. And you want to have people that you can celebrate with, that you can talk about those little wins along the way that are going to be a cheerleader throughout this as well.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And what would you say when you had the natural disaster, split second decision making, surviving? What do you think the tools that you used that worked to come out of this natural disaster?
Definitely coming back to the present moment. I've never felt my heart beating as strong or my breath as deep as that. And just before all of this, I'd learnt the breathing techniques in Pilates. So that's something that I was studying before all of this. And to understand how your body actually works and to feel the parts of you that might need a bit of attention. So when we think of the breath, when people are going through adversity, when they're going through challenges, they probably hold their breath. They're probably taking very shallow little breaths where they're not getting enough oxygen in, and they're probably having lots of tension going on in their body. So when I think about those 3 years that I went through with lots of intense moments, there was lots of challenges, lots of things I had to do, yet coming back to my breath, making sure that I was eating correctly and making sure I was nourishing myself, going for walks to clear my mind, but also getting a bit creative. I remember that I picked up my camera. I had a really great camera that I take photos with, and I started taking photos of the devastation, and I got to see it in a very different light. And it was because I was using a very different part of my brain, and I started to get creative, and I started looking at things very differently through that lens of the camera. And while I was walking, I would take beautiful photos. So even though I was going through very intense moments, I was still taking that time to make sure I was breathing properly, nourishing myself, walking, getting out in nature, and getting creative as well with taking some photos and having the balance within myself and my mind through all of this, because it can be very heavy what you go through and the challenges that you face. But are you lightening it up with a good laugh with friends, or a nice walk in a beautiful setting, and actually noticing the beauty around you? So those tools stay with me, and that's something that I continue all the time. That yes, I'm now working a lot more than I was then, so still going for walks, taking photos, making sure that I take care of myself, and that self-care and self-management is really important through all of this.
Thank you so much. And thank you for mentioning about self-care and self-management. And then, one thing I want to mention, Angela, and then our audience, is I did EMDR. I don't know if you're familiar with EMDR, eye movement desensitizing reprocessing for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because I went through extreme child abuse and trauma and panic attacks for years. The goal is to bring the trauma that's stored in the limbic part of the brain, which is more animalistic reaction, fight or flight, they're gonna freeze, run, hide, those things, fires up and shuts off the cognitive part of the brain, and it gets really black and you can't comprehend, and then you just get in this adrenaline rush and then can't sleep, can't eat, all that stuff. So the goal of EMDR is following the light movement, or having stimulation like vibrator, right, left, to create the REM sleeping, rapid eye movement model when you are fully awake with the guidance of EMDR certified therapist, and then bring the trauma back to the cognitive part of the brain so that you can see it very objectively. So I think what you are instinctively doing, taking the photo of this disaster where you could be very, very scared of. But then you are kind of seeing it as a picture. And that's kind of the technique and the goal of EMDR, to see the trauma as a movie or outsider, like a picture, taking a photo, or taking a movie, shooting a movie. That kind of perspective can help a lot to be objective about what had happened. So I just wanted to share that with you.
And that's amazing. So thank you for doing that, because I really felt a difference when I did that. And as you said, it was just instinctive. I just did it. But you've just put that into a way that I can understand that that's what I started seeing it in a very different perspective. So thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely. And Angela, what's my question? The last one is a gift that came from it. So how would you describe a gift that came from all of this adversities?
Yeah, and when you look back and you make sense of what's happening, sometimes in the moment you're not sure. People often say you go through things for a particular reason, and you're not given anything that you can't work through. And when you're going through the pain and you're in survival mode, it's not as clear. But when you look back, and there is a part of you that gets the sense that you can start to step into normal life, or you can look back and reflect, and it's not as I guess as hurtful as in those very first months or years. And so as I look back and I look at the gifts, there's quite a lot along the way. I understand a lot deeper about the connection I have with my family, and how much we can survive together, and how resilient we are, and how much those moments that we have had together and continue to have are so important. So the value of family within me has deepened. So that gift, I know that we can sometimes lose sight of I guess the bond that you have as people grow and you change. But how can you strengthen that as people are changing? And so we've got this particular bond now that only us as a family have gone through and know, and that family is really important to me. So my gift in that particular area is not taking it for anything else, but what I understand is that truly deeply love for my family and what we went through. And the other gift was, it was, I guess, the kick up the bum to actually do something with my life that gives me that sense of meaning and purpose on a very deeper level. So it gave me that chance to really refresh and look at my life about setting those boundaries and taking those risks and doing things that you think of doing, but actually being proactive about it and taking steps for it. So it's almost like it's, yeah, given me a jolt of confidence in that area. So when I look back, I'm thankful also for our new home, that now that we've been through what we've been through, where we've got to spend COVID in our brand new home that is protected from all of the elements, and we can't hear the wind as much. And that, yeah, we're very thankful that we got to spend the isolation. There was lots in Australia, especially Melbourne, and we got to do that in our brand new home as well.
Well, thank you so much. And then before you leave this podcast, I want you to have one advice for people who might be going through the same situation that you did. So, what do you say?
So for anyone out there that's going through adversity, or might find themselves in a career crisis, or any crisis in general, just to know that you're not alone, that you've got people out there that are here to support you, that it might take a little bit of courage to reach out to someone, or to find a support group, or to find a way that you can work through this with the support of people around you. So I urge you to reach out to someone today that is truly your support system, and really look into who can help you through this time, because you don't have to do it alone.
Well, thank you so much, Angela, for coming to A Gift from Adversity all the way from Australia. I really appreciate you sharing the time with us.
Thank you so much, Juri, for having me here. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of A Gift from Adversity. I have more wonderful guests coming in this month and then next month, all the way to October. I have really international variety of guests who are willing to share their story bravely. So thank you again and have a great day.
Thank you.